Here to look ahead to the presidential election is Republican strategist Diane. She's also the former of Lady Up America, which encourages conservative women to vote. We also have Democratic strategist Jonae Wartell. She was hired by President Biden to lead his campaign efforts in Georgia. Good morning to you both. Glad to have you on the show. So this is one, we'll start with you, Diane. This is one of the first events that Trump has had where he addressed an audience that heckled him. What concerns does this bring for his campaign?
Good morning, Rob and Alex. Good to be with you guys again. I don't think it's going to be very concerning for his campaign. I think it was smart for him to go in and try and address the Libertarian Party. For the foreseeable future, we have a two-party system, and the Libertarian, they barely register on the scale. And you also have a lot of different factions of that party. So you've got an extreme, you have your more radical libertarians, and then you've got the constitutional libertarians and everywhere in between. So there were a lot of people there that were supportive of him, but I think with them getting a national showing, this was a big stage moment for them. I think a lot of the hecklers kind of overtook the crowd and use that as a photo op, for Trump. But it was smart of him to go and try and reach the independent and the Libertarian Party. I'm sure he anticipated that response.
And Jonae, reports suggest that President Biden kind of indirectly criticized Trump during his speech at West Point, where he told graduates they were the guardians of American democracy. That certainly hits upon a common theme for President Biden. And the reports are now that after we get past a verdict in New York, whenever that may come and whatever it may be, who knows, let's be honest, what that jury will do, that the general Biden plan is to get far more aggressive than they have been so far. What do you see as the pros and cons of that approach?
Well, I think first it's important to understand that the hush money trial is a legal proceeding, a part of our judicial system. And I think that the Biden White House's plan to address this first from a formal, Oval Office kind of context is really important, because this is something that has been, playing out in front of the American public, but is a part of our judicial system. And I think it reinforces this belief and this understanding that, no one, even the former president of the United States, is above the law and is above going through the legal process as deemed necessary. I think on the campaign trail, I think what you're going to see is the Biden campaign using this to really highlight how unfit Trump is for office. And I think what's important here to understand is that, while the Trump campaign has no campaign presence, the Biden campaign is going to be out in battleground states talking to voters about why a president who, if convicted, is not fit to hold the office of president again. And so I think the contrast is going to really be on display. And if, the Biden campaign really utilizes that that framing and that context, I think they will really appeal to American voters, both their base, but also independent voters who may be looking at this and raising an eyebrow as to whether Donald Trump is fit to be president again.
And Diane, a YouGov poll finds more than half of voters have not been following Trump's trial closely. Most say it makes them feel either bored or angry. So why is this significant?
Should chill every American to the bone right now. Our Sixth Amendment in the Constitution guarantees us a fair trial and a nonpartisan trial. And we've got literally a judge, a DOJ, and a jury all stacked against Trump right now. I'm not saying Trump is a saint by any stretch of the imagination, but there are so many things that have been questioned and brought out on the stand that make me question if this quote unquote hush money, if the affair with Stormy Daniels even happened, and Cohen was caught on tape with his former attorney saying that it didn't happen. I think it was kind of a show for him, an ambitious show for him to try and gain favor in Trump's camp to get into the White House once he was elected. He took out a mortgage on his own home to pay that money just to try and quote unquote not embarrass Melania. So all these things have been brought out. The other thing is, on the stand, there were witnesses like Stormy Daniels and Michael Cohen that had free range to just talk all they wanted. Yet when there were witnesses introduced that could actually help Trump's side, they were hushed or not even allowed on the stand. So this should chill everyone. I wish everyone would follow it. And in all due respect to Jonae, I do agree that he does have a presence on the campaign trail. These trials are his campaign, and American people are disgusted by it, and they're going to show that in the election come November.
And Diane, let me just stay with you just for a quick second here, because there's been some reporting in recent days about things that President Trump is saying behind closed doors versus what he's saying publicly. And in terms of, we all know that he's having some financial issues because of some of his legal troubles, so he needs cash, perhaps as badly as he ever has before. Washington Post today, Trump promised to crush pro-Palestinian protest on college campuses, telling a room full of donors, a group that he joked included 98% of my Jewish friends, that he would expel student demonstrators from the country. According to participants in the roundtable event with him in New York, there's been reports about what he's told the oil lobby in this country about the free reign they would have if he gets back in the office. I mean, he doesn't say publicly, the same way that he's saying behind closed doors. What do you make of that? He wants to expel demonstrators from the country. How's that going to play?
These are hardly demonstrators. A lot of the college campuses have been infiltrated by George Soros-backed activists, and they are instigating a lot and really luring a lot of unsuspecting and uninformed young people. But when we have people that are literally calling death to Israel, death to America, those are not demonstrators, those are threats. And so we have to take that very, very seriously. There is a faction in Islam that basically wants to take, in the Middle East, that wants to take America from within. We've got millions and millions of them here now, positioned with debit cards and cell phones, awaiting their orders. So these are their words on tape. So this is not something that we just dismiss. This is a threat to America. So we have to treat it as such.
Joné, anticipation is building ahead of next month's presidential debate. It is slated to be straightforward with no audience members. So what opportunities could this give Biden?
I think what's important for President Biden to continue to do, especially in these debates, is draw contrast. If you'll remember the previous debate last election cycle, where Donald Trump and now President Biden have faced off, I think that contrast is always going to be on display. President Biden has been on the campaign trail for months now, talking about the issues that the American people care about. And I think given the stage and given the frame to be able to demonstrate that contrast, I think will be important. We haven't seen a head-to-head matchup with Donald Trump and President Biden this cycle. And so we haven't been able to see that in real time. And so I think the American people are really anxious to see that and are anxious to see fully how much President Biden is focused on improving the lives of working families, and Donald Trump is focused on being a dictator on day one. And I think nowhere is that going to be more clear than on the debate stage.
And real quick, before I let you go, 20 seconds to each of you, because one of the big political headlines over the weekend was that Senator Tom Cotten of Arkansas now is emerging as the leading candidate to be Trump's running mate. Joné, we'll start with you. Any reaction to what a Trump-Cotten ticket would mean or represent for you?
Well, I think that this is really going to be more of the same in terms of the extremist ideas and ideals that they've espoused. I think that when you think about building a coalition that is going to propel, the next president, whether it's, looking at Donald Trump and his pursuit of the White House, I think he's really got to build a coalition of voters, not just folks who are a part of his base, but also independent voters, also, these libertarian voters that we spoke about earlier. And that coalition is not reinforced, or it's not really helped by having someone like Tom Cotten on the ticket. And so if I'm a Trump campaign strategist, I'm looking at how do I pick a running mate, pick a vice presidential nominee that can be someone who can really not just reassure and shore up my base voters, but also help to build a coalition by bringing folks who wouldn't normally vote for a Republican president into the fold. And so I think it's a bit of an error to believe that Tom Cotten will help a Trump campaign for this year.
And Diane, other than not having shot a puppy at point blank range, what does Tom Cotten bring to the ticket, do you think, if the rumors are true?
Yeah, I think if we have a dictator at all, we have one in office right now with so many things that are being weaponized. Trump wants a return to the Constitution. Tom Cotton, I think, brings that decorum and also a love for our country, for God, for family. And this is what the majority of Americans want. The majority of Americans are not activists. They are not on board with this far left policy. So I think Trump's might and Tom Cotton's decorum could be a good win for them. So we'll see.
All right, Diane Canada and Jonay Wardell, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.